presentation and hold our conversation and questions till the end. So with that, I will turn it over to Judge Hawley.
Well, thank you very much. I do want to bring some good news. I did get the clerk to send these to copies of these to the council earlier this week. Nelson Mullins, who is our pro bono counsel in the person of Blake Williams, who's experienced in this, has introduced our application, if you will, which is attached to the Access Justice Commission in Columbia. They are the gatekeepers for homeless court to the Supreme Court. And they were putting it on their agenda for February the 15th, which is right at council's retreat time. So we asked him if there was some way we could get it in January. And that he is working with the executive director to just do this one by email. And hopefully we'll get approved and the order signed in January, and we can begin accepting applications at that point. And then we'll look toward how many applications we can and see if we can't start the first Monday in February with court. But that's the next steps that we're going to be involved in.
That's great.
I will try to keep this short and just our presentation. I hope many of you have had an opportunity to look at it. If you'll look at the committee participants, it's just a short list of who all has been participating for over a year now in meetings that are required by council that we've been following their path to the finish line. We've had all these folks in together and also made visits to various shelters and that sort of thing as well. The police department has several officers downtown. I would cite Lieutenant Christie as being one who is, Lieutenant Conroy. He is very interested in homeless court and working with people, particularly with mental illness or defects in that regard in the downtown area. And I think he sees this as a big benefit. He and Major Long have been at all our meetings, and the chief has been to many of them as well. So law enforcement is very interesting in this alternative to help keep people off the street and functioning as good citizens as best they can. The purpose and goals, as you'll notice in here, establishing the homeless court. This is the process that we went through in brief that was prescribed by Blake Williams, conducting service provider training, developing written materials that we passed out, observations of the Columbia Homeless Court, which we have done by going to several meetings. And we've also had the prosecutor and public defender up here in Greenville to talk about how that system operates. Each one of these, there's one in Rock Hill, there's one in Spartanburg, there's one in Myrtle Beach, and I believe there's one down in the lower part of the state. They all operate differently. Ours is operating uniquely, very similar to what Myrtle Beach has, in that just the municipal court and the city are involved in this as opposed to the county. Long before we got to this point, we had invited some of the county judges that work with various and sundry other social courts to come on board with us and run it over into that and hand it into the county. But at the time that we were talking to them, they weren't very interested in that and have continued on with theirs. But I think particularly with the new public defender, Mindy Lipinski, there's a push now on to maybe expand things into the county more quickly now that they've seen how we've done it here. So we'll certainly work with them to help out all we can. We've done these things. Our purposes and goals, as you can see, is first of all intended to help individuals who are either currently homeless, were homeless at the time they were charged with a criminal offense, or are facing homelessness as a result of pending criminal charges, and who meet the criteria that we'll get into for homeless court participation. The purpose of it is encouraging the participants to receive and complete treatment and rehabilitation programs so that they can be considered for possible dismissal of pending charges, suspension of fines associated with criminal offenses, expungement of arrest information from public records, and in some cases, the possibility of reopening and expunging previous criminal convictions. Primarily, they have occurred within the city of Greenville. We have talked in our discussions with the pro bono attorneys and some of the other members of the group that if, for example, an individual has a charge in a county magistrate's office or even in the circuit court, the Court of General Sessions, and the prosecutors in those areas are willing to work with us and want to take advantage of us trying to rehabilitate someone, we will send a copy of our order of dismissal and successful termination to them for whatever purpose they can use it for in dismissing charges at the magistrate or at the circuit court level as they may agree to. So it may work well even without the expansion in the beginning, lead to those kind of courts being established out in the county. And then moving on toward the criteria, criteria for the court. The definition that's used statewide pretty consistently is that a person is considered homeless for the purpose of homeless court program if he or she is experiencing homelessness in the calendar year immediately preceding the arrest or pending municipal court charges, is currently homeless or faces homelessness as a result of the pending charges against them. A person may qualify for admission to the homeless court if he or she faces eviction or cannot secure housing because of past Greenville Municipal Court charges, convictions, or arrest warrants. There is a screening process for this, which you'll see on the screen now. The Office of the City Prosecutor in the City Attorney's Office will screen all the applicants for participation. The court will look to law enforcement, service providers, defense attorneys, and the city staff members to identify potential candidates for homeless court programming and assistance in the submission of the applicants for homeless court participation. Again, an ideal candidate is an individual who is actively receiving services and/or treatment and is making progress toward these goals, but has criminal convictions or charges that are posing barriers to employment and secure housing. So that's an important factor in trying to integrate people back into regular housing throughout the city is potential, the charge or some prior conviction that we'll concern ourselves with. Some of those cases that will not be eligible are listed here: driving under the influence or driving under the under an alcohol concentration that is 0.08 or above, domestic violence, any degree, violent offenses such as assault and battery, or crimes against persons, in other words, harassment, unlawful telephone communications, things of that nature, where there are victims involved that are receiving the wrong end, if you will, of their kind of acting out on whatever level, or with any convictions for such offenses. And we will note that if any individual has convictions for these things and demonstrated rehabilitation, and if the judge who's sitting consents and any victims have been contacted and consented, this individual may very well become eligible to go through the program. Sometimes you'll find individuals that say that they have problems with someone only when they're drinking. And if they'll get sober, they can have a fruitful, loving relationship. And that may be an important message that we need to hear from a victim in order to put them in the program. So there are many examples of that kind of potential for getting them in, even though that's generally a rejection criteria off the top. And lastly, on the last page, the sessions, we plan on having them at Triune Mercy Center on the first Monday of every month. And we felt like that was a good time to have it, and that many of the people who are homeless in the community can pass the message on to each other. We need to go down to Triune on the first Monday at 2:00. And we encourage people who have that condition to come down and just watch how things are being conducted and give them an opportunity to see how it works if they want to volunteer or seek that benefit at some later time. We're also encouraging people who do not have cases that are pending to come down and take advantage of the service providers who will be there on a monthly basis and see if they can't just go on and get themselves involved. And we'll even get one of the attorneys to work with them if they have barriers to employment or housing, such as no DL or ID card, no social security card, things of that nature, maybe even just getting a driver's license because they've had a suspension and don't know how to go about getting their license paid off and out from under suspension.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll also in the future be looking for some partners who may want to provide us with the ability to make a contribution to someone who may have several $100s in fees that are required by the highway department in order for their license to be released and the suspension lifted. And we'll try to work with folks in that regard as well. But that's the basics of it. Again, I gave you the copies of what we're real pleased with, and that is our application that's gone into the Access for Justice director, and hopefully she'll get that worked out quickly and we can get it approved next month, or actually in January. Questions?
Yeah, quick question.
Yes, sir.
When do you think we're going to be able to, I know we're waiting on that application to be approved, but when do you guys foresee the first month of us being able to do this?
Well, it would be nice if we can maybe do it, if nothing else, just to go over there and meet people on the first Monday in February if we can get the order signed.
Okay.
It wouldn't take anything on our part to get in the car and go over there, get the service providers over there, and maybe we'll have some applicants in the month of January that we can write over and get hooked up with the attorneys at that point. It's going to be a 6-month to maybe a year process for many people.
Rolling.
So the sooner we can get started, the sooner we can work toward graduating somebody.
I think that,
Go ahead.
I think the provision of additional services is awesome. I think that's a great solution. And where at Triune? Is this in the dining room or in
the dining room?
Okay.
That's what they've offered to us.
And a weird question, do all the courts that we have in South Carolina, do they call themselves homeless court?
They do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the order calls us to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There's some stigma associated with
I
that.
understand that.
And
And that might be something that, we could present at a later time to the Access for Justice Committee. And we're changing chief justices in January. So it may be something that we can offer up to the new chief justice to reissue those orders with the name that you might suggest. I know you and I have talked about that in the past.
Judge, a couple of quick questions. The ineligibilities, I'm assuming those are patterned off of existing court
Yes, sir,
statewide and
that's
elsewhere?
correct.
So no major variations
No.
between what we're proposing? And maybe to Ken's question to an extent, I mean, no, you can't predict the future as far as I'm aware.
No,
Right.
I wouldn't be in this job.
But what do you expect if this thing rolls out in Greenville, March or April? I mean, based on prior experience without us having homeless court, what type of caseload would you expect the first couple of months?
Well, I would say we may have a rush in the beginning of people making application, but then those are going to have to be screened. And just the closest people I can tell you to where we are in Spartanburg, they have a homeless court. And I think at their best rate that they had about 16 people in it at any one time. And they graduated about 10 to 12 people, I think, in the first year that they were open. So there are going to be a lot of people that go by the wayside in the application process or may not even apply. So it's gonna be a smaller group. I think once the word gets out of successes and the success rate that seems to be really critical to bringing in more and more people that are interested in trying to work this out in the future.
Okay, thanks.
And Judge Hawley, what's the role of United Housing Connections and the Greenville Homeless Alliance and those types of groups?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what role they have at the present time. I understand that they are funded the emergency
Yeah.
shelter information desk over there on MacB around behind the CBS through the year and not the calendar year, but through the budget year. So we'll have that available. But I don't know that they have any housing available right now. I understood at one time they were funding someplace out in the county that could be a home and a day center. Whether or not that's continued on or not, I don't have any info.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Judge, glad you're doing it at Triune, which of course is right around the corner from me. That's a great place to have it for a number of reasons. But I do know that I've brought up to the city manager many times, multiple times, not many, a few times, that, you know, even right there, we've got issues around that area. I've got 10, I knew this was happening today, so I purposely drove past an area where I knew that there are encampments up right now. There are tents up right now as we speak at the Salvation Army property, across West Stone on our right of way that's kind of behind the James Street folks. And then I went past QT and there were a couple folks in sleeping bags over there. So clearly that is a center area where people who are experiencing homelessness are, and hopefully this will be helpful. I think it will be helpful.
I believe that it will, yes.
Anywhere where we serve food for those who are homeless, the encampment will always grow. They have always grown there. It's not a new thing, so we just need to keep our eyes on it as well. But as it gets colder, oftentimes they'll be seeking indoor shelter, and so we have to make sure that we have a lot of conversation and continue to work with them. Your question a few minutes ago about the other locations, we need to have as many people be aware that the city has this and your court has it, so that the screening process can go through, because oftentimes a lot of the people are not aware. The ones who really are the ones who will be positively impacted by this are not aware. So it's like they're the ones that got to get the message, and so it won't hurt our community officers, et cetera, to help whenever we get to that particular point.
One thing we're doing is finalizing the application that's very basic.
Right.
And it has where it's gonna be. And
Right.
it's the first Monday of every month.
Right.
And so we'll get those in the hand of the downtown officers
Great.
and all of Uniform Patrol so that they can help us spread that word as they provide somebody with that information. That's the one-on-one method that works the best I know. But I'm sure that Beth and some of her staff can help put it on social media as well.
Well, I think another thing that's going to really help is quite frankly getting the contract that you guys opened up with Mindy Lipinski and the Public Defender's Office.
Right.
I know that they're going to do a great job of making sure that their clients know about it. And quite frankly, pretty much every homeless person will probably be assigned to the Public Defender's Office as an attorney.
Well, or our pro bono lawyers.
Exactly.
We've got about a half dozen of those lined up.
So I think that's going to be key.
Yeah. Roots and rebound too.
Yeah.
And also, one thing too that Blake is going to do for us, he's going to teach one of the sessions at our county bar CLE course in January. So all of the bar can be exposed to it as well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Who will be the presiding judge?
Stinson or myself. We'll both be over there in the beginning, but After that, we'll probably alternate.
Just one more, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No,
You
you go.
fin-
I got a
yeah.
quick question.
Finish yours. Go ahead. I've got a
Okay.
few. You go ahead.
Well, just follow up on him. You said, you told us the numbers that Spartanburg has. What are the numbers that Columbia has?
I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Okay.
I can find out for you.
Because I'm thinking that they're probably gonna be more on par with what our numbers hopefully will be.
Well,
than Spartanburg.
Columbia is Richland County.
Yeah, Richland
It's run by the solicitor's office,
Mhm.
not the city prosecutor.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's gonna incorporate a lot
A
more
larger
area
Okay.
and caseload.
And then just comment, I know that this is something that you guys have been working on for a while, and I appreciate the effort that you put into it. I appreciate all the effort that you put into it. I appreciate all the effort that Stinson put into it. I appreciate all the effort that all of the homeless advocates around the county have put into this. I know this is something that they've been looking for some time. So I think this is going to be a really great program to help a lot of people out who are in circumstances that they can rebound from and become, real productive members of our society without the stigma of having these convictions on them. So I applaud everything you guys have done to get this thing in place, and I really, really appreciate it.
Well, we're
Thank
looking
you.
forward to it.
Okay, go ahead, Don.
Good to see you both. Thanks for being here on this hot day on the ninth floor. Help me walk through this a little, because Ken, you live in this space of law every day. So you talked about the crimes that would make them exempt or not eligible for the program. So an example of a crime that would put them on the trajectory to being considered,
Well,
just an example, don't give me
yeah,
Petty larceny?
petty larceny, shoplifting,
Okay.
trespassing,
okay.
things of that nature.
So
Public
someone-
drunk.
Okay, so a person experiencing homelessness commits one of those crimes, a call is made, the police are called, and then they're given a citation for that, okay. Then that person appears before y'all and is offered the program?
We have first appearances in all our cases now except traffic.
Okay,
So, they'll be given information about appearing in court on a designated date and time
okay,
in their bond,
okay,
and then, hopefully they'll come.
okay, and then at
And then
that
they
point,
can-
they make a choice. Do you want to fill out an application to be considered or not?
Well, either that or, their lawyer will already have that information.
Okay. All right, then the lawyer, let's say the lawyer advises them, you really want to get into this program, although if this program is like Veterans Court, and that's the only thing I have any kind of metric for comparably, going through the program is harder than just saying no, walking away and continuing to live the way you were living.
Right.
Because you can walk away, continue to
But
live the
then
way
you
you're
come
living.
back to court.
You're gonna come back to court or commit another crime and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so then they fill out the application and then that screening process begins, and I heard city prosecutor's office, so at
Right.
this point,
Well, that's the Lee City Prosecutor,
Okay.
Betty Strong.
okay, and
Well,
so,
it'll actually be through my office.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Betty will be the prosecutor representing the city on the case, but either I or someone I train in my office to screen the applications will screen the applications.
okay. And so you asked the question I was gonna ask, what is a comparable number? How many do we expect? We got Spartanburg's number is 16. Spartanburg is a little bit more than half the size of Greenville and doesn't have a downtown that even comes close to our downtown, but I'm biased. So let's say we're double that. 40,
You know,
give it a little bit more, 40.
we can handle, more people than that.
Okay.
I'm just telling you what.
But just ballpark, I'm just trying to get a feel, because all of this is going to be more than what we do now. And all of this requires more staff hours, more whatever, and so that's a data point. Okay, so I guess I'm getting to, we are all collectively in this space trying to make homelessness brief and rare. Right? There are other factors that weigh into how we got to this point, but it's whatever we've been doing so far, keeping on doing it and not affecting the problem is definition of insanity and all that. So this is something we're going to try we have put into play the Homeless Resource Center, right, which is still operational as far as I know. We fund that. Okay, so the benefits to the people, the stakeholders of Greenville is to reduce homelessness. The benefit certainly to the person experiencing homelessness is this could be turn around their life. Do we have any feel for the incremental cost, and how is that cost? I can hear the cost representative perhaps in the legal office, logistics, things like that. But there's also, I assume, a reduction in cost in terms of putting people in jail, which is always going to be more expensive. Has any of our committee work given us a feel for the incremental cost or the cost we have to fund to keep this running efficiently, smoothly, well, to have the impact that it should? Have we looked at that? Because that's a budget item coming up the way I see it.
Well, we haven't thought of it as that right now because the court's participation in it is limited. There's a burden placed on the attorneys that are going to be the mentors, if you will, for these individuals.
Okay, so is that their role? That attorney
Yeah.
serves as the mentor.
And they're pro bono or they're public defender.
Okay.
And so, but by and large, so they're going to be escorting these people to all of these service providers and taking advantage of those services. And once that's accomplished, then they'll move on to something else they might need. I mean, for one thing, drug and alcohol abuse training, education, and treatment is long-term.
Mm-hmm.
And the burden's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that one thing that the city needs to consider is also as much as can be done to help provide housing that's transitional at best, but housing for these people. Because if we get more people, then that's where we're gonna need to put them is the big factor in all of it to avoid homelessness. Now, everything that others have told us, Spartanburg, the attorneys force and all, is that in other courts, most of this is driven by service providers who have clientele that are already in their programs and need to take care of these criminal matters. And so that's where we see most of the applications coming from in the beginning. So again, they're going to be on our docket one way or the other, and that's not going to be an issue. We're going to have to park them somewhere, and we'll begin to do that. But we do that with jury trials, and so we can, designate a file cabinet for those cases.
One thing that gets me a little nervous, and I don't know how to address it, but there's a little bit of graying of area of county and city, right? County and city. In order to come to this, the violation has to have taken place in the city.
Right.
But we talked about how Mindy talked about extending it to the county.
Yeah.
I guess I'm cautious about the city of Greenville taxpayers and business owners being responsible for
we're not
issues
doing that.
that may be outside
What I'm
the
saying
city.
is if the attorney that is mentoring the client
Right.
Discovers that they have other charges somewhere else, then we have no objection to making an extra copy of our paperwork
it's not
to go to
Yeah.
another court. But the lawyer's going to have to be responsible for delivering it, for working out any arrangements with some other court, whether it's a magistrate or the solicitor's office in general sessions. And if they want to accept the progress the person's made in disposing of their charge favorably, that's up to them.
Isn't that what your screen would do? If you're looking for crimes in the city of Greenville?
Yeah, but city residents are pay county taxes.
It starts.
Already.
I'm saying more something's going on in the county and it's getting taken care of in the city of Greenville homeless court.
No,
So what would happen is this. Let's say, for instance, I've got a client, okay, and client has a city charge. Went downtown, got drunk, got arrested for public drunkenness. At the same token, he's got some county charges over in Pickens.
And he's homeless
And he's homeless, okay.
for this.
And so he's got some other charges over in Pickens. I get him into the program in Greenville. He goes through the municipal court, through the homeless court program here. As part of that program, he goes to a bunch of services which are not provided by us, but which are already provided by public services. And basically, I'm just coordinating and getting him there.
Yeah.
Once I've done that, the city of Greenville, through the homeless court program, will have a record of all the things that he had to do in order to go through it. And they'll be able to confirm, yes, he did this, yes, he did that. What he's saying is that they'll make me a copy of that record, so I can then take that record over to the Pickens County solicitor and say, hey, my client has done all these different things, all these rehabilitation things. Why don't we just dismiss these charges as well? But it wouldn't come through him as far as, because he doesn't have jurisdiction to dismiss the Pickens County charge. And quite frankly, if the program gets expanded throughout the county, unless they have something in Greenville, there'll have to be satellite locations in other places in order to be able to do it in other counties. So for instance, somebody got a charge in the city of Malden, but didn't have a pending charge in the city of Greenville. He could not go through the city of Greenville.
Malden doesn't call us and say, can we put somebody in your home?
I just want to make sure we're not framing it as the best place to be homeless in South Carolina is Greenville.
Oh, no.
I don't know how to put it any more blatantly.
But I mean, that will not happen for the simple reason that every one of these people, where we'll be spending the majority of our time at 2:00 every first Monday, is listening to the attorneys who, on various occasions that they determine, apply for the docket and say, we want to bring Joe Blow in to give you a report on 30, 60, 90 days or whatever they've been doing. We can hear that and then say, well, congratulations, and we want you to keep at it, and we applaud you for that. Hang in there and move on to the next one.
It also wouldn't be available for multiple offenses.
Right.
Okay.
So it's not by statute. Pretrial intervention, you complete it one time and you're statutorily prohibited from doing it again. This doesn't have that. This is not a creature of statute, so it doesn't have that restriction. But as part of the screening process, if we have a history and we know that someone has already been through our program, or let's say they made it 95% of the way and then they weren't able to complete. Maybe we allow somebody, if they've shown some signs that they're rehabilitated, to come back in and give it another try. But it would not be a situation where it would be that you are automatically admitted to the program just because you've meet all those criteria.
I think what it boils down to is we aren't leading on this because other cities in South Carolina have done it, but we certainly would be leading in the immediate area, the county area. I don't want to be the destination for homelessness. I don't think any city aspires to be that. It's just it's an awful circumstance that people find themselves in for a variety of reasons. But in addressing it, it is for the purposes of the betterment, assistance to people, betterment of quality of life for Greenvillians, and it is flat out an economic development issue, very much so, especially downtown. And I just want to make sure the reasons we're doing this are multifaceted.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are a destination, so to speak, for homeless people, but that's not because of this program. I mean, that's because we are a community with, relative to a number of other places, a lot of resources, and particularly resources that are concentrated in an area where people who do not have transportation can get to. So regardless of whether we put this program in place or not, there are going to be homeless people. Like, if I'm going to be homeless, I'd much rather be homeless in Greenville than homeless in Pickens, where there's, no disrespect to Pickens, where there's nothing, to whatever help me. Now, what I think this program does is, though, it creates a situation where if people are coming to Greenville and they are homeless and they have social issues, it is creating a motivation or a program which will encourage them to actually deal with those social problems that they have, which will hopefully take them off of being homeless in the first place. And the benefit to us as Greenvillians is not so much, I don't think, directly that we're going to be making some huge dent in our homeless population. What I think it will do is, though, if it goes off right, it will result in less crime committed by those individuals who are able to go through. Even people who don't complete the program will get some benefit of it if they're able to go through some of these programs that sort of get them back on some sort of track as far as
Okay,
Be a
members of
taxpayer.
society.
Yeah, one of the things, we extended our time, but that's great. Some of you, if you've been paying attention, the Southeast Regional Mental Health Symposium was held here in Greenville 2 or 3 times. And 9 of my neighborhood association presidents went with me to that symposium, and the homeless court was talked about then. That's been 6, 7 years ago or longer. And so, and it was seen as something that could help not only reduce homelessness, but provide more accuracy on services. You have a whole lot of service providers who are not providing a lot of service to the right people who need stuff. So this will coordinate more than one thing, as well as in addition to this, the homeless court that we actually saw with the Chamber of Commerce in Texas was far bigger than this, et cetera. And it was copied by just about a lot of people. We hope that if this goes on, we'll just be one of many, because you have other cities that will be able to do some parts of the same program, and it will move faster and save a lot of time and effort on the police and our court system as well. So I think it's going to be a wonderful situation as well. And we thank both of you for
Madam
this.
Mayor Pro Tem, as we
Yes, sir.
transition, if I may, let me just, I would benefit from it, maybe some others, but for Stinson and Judge Hawley, I imagine NLC, I imagine maybe Bruce with Nelson Mullins, there's got to be a number of what I'll just call white papers
Yes.
that to Ken's point, to what you just shared, help people understand the foreseeable direct or indirect impact of programs like this, not only throughout the municipal
Yeah.
organization, but maybe throughout the community. And if anybody finds or has seen one of those that helps people understand the what's in it for insert every stakeholder in the community, I think that'd be incredibly helpful, especially for our media partners, because that would be the story I'd want people to know. Why would you do this?
They had 5 or 6 different sessions on homeless courts at NLC in Atlanta that just came from.
That's
I went to
great.
just one, because I've been to several. The Chamber of Commerce has one, has information on it, because they carried us to one in Texas many years ago. So I'm saying there is information that staff be able to find some to give it to
That's
some.
great. I'm not doubting
This is the
My
year-
providers
this is
probably
the
have a
year
lot of that they can give us.
In the
Yes.
looking at,
by direction
folks.
of the,
that can
I was
help
going to
us.
ask if you had anything to add.
there's gonna be a big emphasis on that.
Okay, any final questions or comments?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the homelessness white paper addresses some of those.
Does
That was just
Yeah.
revised.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Any other final comments or questions? Thank
Vincent,
you.
were saying something?
Yes, Vincent?
Oh, no, I was asked if I had anything to say. I said I appreciate that. We've extended our time, but it's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to working with all the stakeholders, and the support from the city has been what I think has gotten us over the hump. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's gonna
Thank
be
you.
good.
Thank y'all very
Thank you,
much.
Judge and
Thank
Judge.
you,
Guys.
Judge and gentlemen.
Thanks to our visitors who came out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That sounds like fans.
Thank y'all so much.
Judge and Judge.
Yes, thank you.
Good judge.
All right, moving on, we've got an update on our business license ordinance. And this is just to give you a little more information about what I'd asked Patricia to go over tonight is specifically as we go into this item is on our regular agenda later, what is required that we have to do before December 31 under state law, and then some of what would be policy additions that would be voted on, by city council at some point. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patricia and let her transition us into business license.
So what is actually required through the Standardization Act is that we make changes to the North American Industry Classification System every odd year. So by December 31st, we change the NACS code, put it in the appropriate class as approved by the Municipal Association, which then follows into whatever our rate schedule is by those tiered classes.
I appreciate this. This is real clearer than some that I've seen before. Bless you. This is great.
So again, what the NAICS code is it's just a classification methodology that's used by the Internal Revenue Service. It is an income-based methodology. So this is all a recap. Today, we have 9 class schedules. The resident businesses differ from non-resident businesses. They're typically double. The base rate is based on the first 2,000 of gross income, and then incrementally on each additional 1,000 of gross income. The current rate schedule has a declining scale, which benefits the high grossing businesses. And that is one of the pieces that I would like to remove at some point, because it appears to actually cause a lot of confusion for our businesses.
Patricia, let's talk about 1 second for the declining scale.
Yeah.
So just, if you don't mind, just explain that quickly about how that impacts all of our businesses and why that would be something for consideration.
So only the businesses, you only pay 100% of your business license on the first 10 million of gross income, and then it declines from there with an overall cap of gross income of 200 million.
Okay.
And that causes people confusion when they're trying to submit their business license every year.
They just don't understand it. So just looking at ways to, as much as possible, keep the rates, really reduce the rates. There is a statute that says or by practice really, the outside resident rates are only double. So it is like a bit of a puzzle to keep the outside residences at double and maintain the sufficient amount of revenue.
I should know the answer to this, but if a company is headquartered here, does gross income, is that calculated on their total gross income or on just business
Total.
conducted within the city of Greenville?
Total gross income, the only exception that's really made for that is with resident contractors, where they're charged a different rate on outside of the city gross sales. But that's not the case on any others. And we did go through a legal opinion for that this past go around, and as an economic development.
I mean, like a bank, for example, a bank that has branches in Pickens and
Whatever
Iowa.
whatever
are
goes
they
through.
charged on?
It depends on whether or not it's a headquartered. There's actually a lot of exemptions within the business license statute, so banks is a little bit tricky.
A great example is Boeing,
Yeah.
which is in North Charleston,
Mhm.
which is billions and billions and billions of dollars. And so when their assessment would have been huge, I can't remember how much it was.
And you said it was capped at 200 million, right?
Ours is capped at 200 million. I am not,
This is before, this is before the
the Standardization Act,
Okay.
which
which was supposed to bring all that.
right.
So what happened with Boeing?
Well, before the act was enacted, Boeing's price tag was millions and millions of dollars. It could have been, I don't know, $50 million. And Boeing's like, no, we're not going to pay it. And so they struck a deal with the city of North Charleston. But what this act is supposed to do is bring all that, standardize all that, so you don't have those outliers like.
You don't have the pockets. So.
Across the state, it's standardizing across the state so that
Amen.
it's more predictable for the businesses as to what they would.
It also creates an online portal. So say you have multiple locations, you can do it all through the municipal association. And there is, of course, the requirement that you cannot be double taxed on your gross income within the state of South Carolina.
Yeah,
So-
and combined report.
Right.
Does it include your, I wouldn't have known the answer to that. You said I should know this. I wouldn't. That was a great question. If I'm a retailer and I do online business that ships out of the city,
That ships out of the city.
yeah. I mean, now that's business outside. Is that part of my gross income? Or out of the state, for that matter?
I would have to double
good.
check. Yeah.
Yeah, so the income, I don't know if
The
it's,
gross income, if it's reported through the store, I think in your
Yeah, I mean-
retailer, I think it would be through the
To
store.
me,
but that
isn't it,
gets
if
back to
it's the
some-
gross income on your tax return, it's gross income. It doesn't matter where the product went.
Mhm.
Can we go to the next slide
Mhm.
so we can get through?
Sure. Overall, if we made if we made no changes other than those required through the municipal association, we would be looking at a 42,000 decrease in business license tax received.
Okay, so that's the slide of impact.
That's
That's
the
the
minimum,
slide
the
impact.
bare
Bare
minimum
Mhm.
decreases our revenues by 42.
and the other way to look at it, of course, it decreases our revenue, but then it also decreases the amount of taxes that are that are businesses.
So this slide says that based on action of the General Assembly, we have an obligation to adopt these changes, which net effect from a financial standpoint is,
A decline.
yeah, $40,000 less for the city,
But we
40,000 more in the business coffers.
This is
Right,
required.
That's based on the very conservative budget that we have.
Correct,
So-
correct. So they do not set the rates that we can,
Mhm.
that we charge business, license tax out. They just set the classification. Yeah, so it's a little bit different.
So
So
there's some
most
variability.
likely that 41,000 is a worst case scenario.
Correct.
Okay.
'Cause
Well
we are
done.
conservative when we estimate.
Okay, but you're basing it on the gross income staying the same. Okay, no, you go up to 19 million.
90,000.
Okay.
I'd forgotten all about this. I do seem to recall, I guess we did,
Mhm.
back in our Greenville Convention Center meeting days,
Mhm.
doing this.
Yes, sir.
So
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Mhm.
hang around a little longer, this will become
Mhm.
second hand,
We'll
right?
be talking about business license all the time.
But that whole new route
Every year.
standardization.
Guaranteed.
It's
It,
been working
I
on
will
this
say
for
this, that when
2 years.
when the Standardization Act went into effect, I'm sorry, I just cut you off.
Yep.
There was the directive that it had to remain revenue neutral at the time. And the reason there was purely that the municipal association did not want to take the heat for people having huge increases to their overall revenue.
Right.
Business license is a revenue source, and it's a huge revenue
It's a
source for the city.
significant one for us.
Right, it's the second largest to property taxes, so.
So just to kind of put it in a bow for y'all, what's required that you have to vote on before December 31st under state law is we have to review every other year the class schedule and the NAICS codes, which we have done and I think is very standard. What is a policy decision before council that is not required under state law is, do we keep the sliding scale and do we remove the caps? And the ordinance that is in front of you tonight currently does both of those. It removes the sliding scale and it removes the cap.
Which we.
That's it in a nutshell. So that's the decision that's before you.
Have we gotten any pushback about removing the cap?
We've not received any pushback from the public on this item,
No.
but I know some members of council have had questions.
Mhm. And some of
Is
the
it-
businesses, you got to make
Too
it.
bad. I just wanted to make sure I was
Have
being,
come in.
I was trying to get it as succinct as possible about what is required and what is the policy decision.
And what is proposed through with the original ordinance is a decrease in the per thousand additional, gross income rates, along with a decline, or removal of the declining scale.
Okay.
Okay, let me ask you this.
So it benefits the small businesses, but again, if you make over 10 million, it was ratcheted down, like 10 million and one to 200 million.
How many businesses do we have that will be affected,
Negative.
that currently, or at least last year, were capped out?
5.
Okay.
I'm going off memory. So the proposed changes will negatively impact approximately 700 businesses
Mhm.
and positively impact 8,300 businesses. So 92% to 8%.
And what's the explain to me how the businesses, the 8,300 will be positively
Because
impacted?
through the reduction of
Rate.
rates.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're reducing rates, and the offset for that is that we are removing the sliding scale and we're getting rid of the caps.
Exactly.
Okay.
Have the five been vocal at all?
No, they don't know because you can't actually reach out to them because of the,
The only way they would have known is it hit first reading. I mean,
right, but they'd have to be watching. I mean,
Yeah.
but we wouldn't,
it wasn't.
we're not contacting them to say, hey, your business license taxes, it's going to go up.
But the overall impact, if we do the bare minimum, overall impact is we lose $42,000. Have we run the numbers of the overall impact if we do the full Monty, the way the ordinance is written right now, the removal of the sliding
Like
scale?
840,000
To the good
to
of
the
the
good,
city
to the positive,
and
That was
against
my-
business.
but to the,
So there's some heartburn that 700 businesses are going to have to shoulder $845,000 and probably more Because if the overall increase to all businesses is $845,000, yet 92% of the businesses are seeing a decrease, it's probably more of an impact of $845,000 to our businesses in the city. So I have asked, and of course, we say this, I'm just one of 7, but I have asked that we amend tonight that would pass what's obligated, which was the first slide, but ask staff to go back and see if there's a way to work on the sliding scale, work on the caps, so that it's not such a big impact to our businesses, nearly $1 million.
Okay, I know I'm wrong on a comma or period here, but when I take $845,000.
Yeah.
And divide it by 700, and I know everybody's not paying the same amount.
Yeah.
But that's all I got on the phone, and that's $1,200 per business.
That's right.
Sure. Okay.
Incremental. Now, of those businesses, those 700, what are the gross?
Well, can I?
I mean, there could be some, I mean, there could be some big ranges.
Okay.
just to be clear, yeah.
Let me respond to that. So Patricia was kind enough to share the average increases of business license taxes for the class numbers or the categories of businesses. And what really caught my eye was the average increase to, say, retailers is going to be $8,300 per business.
So that's got to be a major retailer.
No, it doesn't. $10 million
Wouldn't it be because it's the top? I thought these were the top 7% earners.
I mean, they're the ones that make.
So mom and pop retailers would not see this if they're bringing in more than $10 million.
I would have to look at some
Could be a
specific.
mom and pop for.
They're
They
not
had to be
allowed.
bringing in $10 million because
Like-
we're lowering the rate by like 15 cents per additional 1,000.
My concern is this. My concern, again, y'all may say to work in,
I feel you the 8%, yeah.
If it's the
And
top
like, right.
7% earners in the city, and I'm just casting out and you say that much, I'm thinking that's a Belks, not OP Taylors. But I don't know. Sales might be super good at OP Taylors and down at Belks. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking if they're in the top 7% earners in our city, they're not a mom and pop retailer.
well, the other concern I have is category number C5, which is professional, scientific, technical, which is where your life sciences are coming in. So twofold. Number one, again, y'all may tell me I'm crazy, but we're trying to attract life science companies, but yet our average increase for them is $8,600 for business license. And then again, I go back to retailers. And so if you do this in a vacuum, you say, look, $8,300. Well, it's not in a vacuum because they're also seeing huge, as we all know, insurance rate increases. We've seen what's happened to Smiley's, but that's happened across the board.
Food and beverage.
Food and beverage. So seeing a lot of increases in insurance. They're seeing inflation. They're seeing supply cost increase, supply problems. And then to me, if during inflation and supply cost increase, I just think that we should at least, I would vote against it just in principle, but for the council, I would at least just say, hey, let's pass what's obligated, but let's ask staff to go back and see if we can reduce the $845,000 hit to our businesses.
Questions. So just to play devil's advocate, if we are protecting the top 7% from those things, wouldn't the decreases in taxes paid by the bottom 8,300 businesses, wouldn't they need that even more considering that they're near the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sold on it's just the top earners that are gonna be hit. I'm concerned that you're gonna see this across the board, that there are gonna be increases. And even a $2,000 or $3,000 increase in business license tax for some of these retailers. I was sitting I went to dinner with Sonny, and I was sitting at the bar eating dinner at the new place by the skating rink, the little sushi place. And I was sitting next to the owner of a retailer, and I noticed his jacket. I was like, wow, nice jacket. He goes, oh, you should come by my store. I said, well, how are y'all doing? He goes, man, it's just, we're just hanging on. We're hanging on. And so I feel like it would at least be prudent for us to say, hey, we got businesses that are just hanging on. We're always promoting retailers and whatnot.
Man, did you go by the store?
But
Yeah, really.
No.
But I'm hearing her say
but the
his
point-
taxes would go down.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like.
I'm not hearing that.
If you have
It sounds
questions
like
for
that guy
Patricia and
Texas
want to
would-
receive information,
he'd be
that's
angry.
what work
Yeah,
session might be for.
Can't
Um,
deliberate.
Well, I've got a
We don't-
question.
Oh, we
What
can't
Ken's
Deliberate
done is you
during
had
work session.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, so just so I can understand,
In 2 more minutes, we got 2 more minutes.
that may be difficult for me. But just so I can understand, what you're asking is that we do what tonight and not do tonight?
Not do both.
Oh, you're asking me,
Yeah, what
what
you-
I'm,
yeah,
what I'm
sure.
asking to do tonight is do what's the legislature has obligated us to do.
And just to be clear, what exactly is that?
That's the NAICS code.
The next
class
code is
changes.
the class
Okay, so
schedule.
we'll
We'll redo the clock. We'll get to this slide.
That's
we'll,
right.
we'll
We'll have
do
this
the
in there.
NAICS part.
And,
Okay,
and there's some cleanup on commercial property.
Yeah.
But that's just
Okay.
cleanup, yep.
And the
but
second part
not
would just
do
be.
the resist or not do the sliding scale and the
Just
whatever.
take
And
it.
Not the slide scale
And for
or
us
the
to study
cap.
it more and bring it
But I
back.
can come back with options,
Right.
so.
okay,
The other thing,
can we come back with those options between first and second reading?
we're at
This is
second
second
reading
reading.
already.
This is second.
This is second. The other option,
All out of.
and you set the agenda, obviously, Madam City Manager, is that we defer on this item altogether. We've prepared a requested motion, but that is also an option.
You do have that option. Just know that we have to adopt the updated NAICS codes
By when?
and the class schedules
By the end of
by
the
the end of the year.
Last
So if for
December.
some reason we were not to adopt those at the December 11th meeting, we would have to call a special called meeting in order to make
Christmas
that.
Eve.
Is there any
Hello.
reason why we can't do that at the December 11th meeting?
There is, no, we built this in to have that as a fail safe. Just
Okay.
know that we
It would
want
have to
to,
be done by then.
that's right.
Is there a time sensitivity to the voluntary portion of this?
No, the time
It's just, it's a little
sensitivity.
bit cleaner though, so I get that.
Well,
I
the
would,
renewal,
I would take care of business now because we're under an obligation to do it and it's ready to go. And I would propose at the earliest reasonable opportunity, the voluntary part of this, knowing that there's no, we own the time, we bring it back.
We
I'd
have to
like-
send out renewals by the end of February, so we would like to have this resolved as
Yeah, I'd
soon
like to
as
put a
possible.
timeline on it, because what I don't want to happen is that we put it off and then we just never end up.
Yeah, I do want to revisit.
So-
I mean,
And
Maybe
when,
we have
when
to.
you come back with more data or more
it's
scenarios,
different options.
different options,
Well,
you have, hold on, you have to take, I'm still
No,
speaking.
no, please go, please go. I'm just waiting, I'm waiting with bated breath to jump right in.
You have to take into account that, for example, life science example, they get a break on our business license fees because they're in, I would assume they're categorized in manufacturing, I'm guessing, I don't know. But certain businesses get breaks, they get it waived.
Oh, they do,
And then-
and
and
they
all
have
those
to
things.
apply for the incentives.
Right,
Just
right,
as
right,
business
right.
license
So
incentives,
that,
new
there are already
businesses.
all those breaks that we can tweak those
Mhm.
too, which I think is worth evaluating. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there are business classifications that are already getting breaks, deserve breaks in our system.
Okay, Ken, come on.
Okay, so from a parliamentary question, if we split it and we pass the required part tonight,
Mhm.
and we put a timeline to come back on the other thing, how does that happen considering that how do we do that?
I don't know that you can put a time, like a timeline on that. I think you could.
Because we
No,
are,
you
because we
can
are
instruct the
passing.
city
Yeah.
manager that
Yeah,
you
you tell
expect
the city
it.
manager that's what you expect,
could-
or you could do a resolution at your next meeting.
We could
directing
postpone to a date certain and make that date certain December.
December 11th?
Yeah, that's an option.
I mean, that's the, and during that time, and you say.
for all of
For the
it,
whole
or just-
enchilada,
Yeah.
and the reason I say that is I'd rather rip the Band-Aids off once than multiple times, and that gives you multiple times to have businesses, if you wanna have a certain business evaluated, I don't know who, you could do that, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I think there's only
I'd like to wait
5
until
businesses
like the
that we're
first
talking
meeting in
about.
January, just to give everybody a
Original.
breath.
I want to
See,
give
the problem is
Patricia
that we have to
sufficient
do
amount of
part of
time.
it by December, and if we don't, but the way we're splitting this up, we can't put a timeline on it. I'm gonna back up. So my concern is this, I want us to vote on this issue. I want an actual vote on this issue. But if we do what you're doing saying we do half of it, then that ends this particular motion. Okay, and that motion, resolution, ordinance, it is done, is dead. There's nothing else that is required to come back. So the thing is, there's no way that we can vote tonight to say, hey, we want another thing that comes up automatically. You know,
And
it's
you
just a
just have
matter
to-
of, if it-
You have to instruct your city manager that you have an expectation
instruct,
for that.
we instruct unclassified employees all the time. I would just say, unless somebody thinks it's gotta be ceremonious, that, I mean, one of us instruct the city manager.
yeah. Okay.
Patricia, could you get back to us
January
by the
8th.
December
Okay.
meeting?
I can give you different options.
With the
And that, I mean,
full-
that
by
avoids
December.
parliamentarian.
And then in the
If you don't,
December,
then you pass
then
the
you pass it. half
revised
seasons.
ordinance that you have.
Yeah, I would say postpone tonight to a date certain, that date certain being December. And then in December, that gives Patricia time to pull together what she needs to pull together. Then if in December you still want to do it half season, amend it, then that's the
just
time
vote.
to do it.
Yeah.
I may be greatly outnumbered. I'd rather do tonight just because the December 11 is supposed to be.
It's a party.
No, but we have to have something to do on
Let's, if
December
there are
11th
more
as well.
questions
You talking
about,
one vote?
the info
got a
specifically,
problem.
and
We
then
got
can
another thing,
talk
yeah.
about
Okay,
Thank
any other questions of Patricia? All right, very good. We're ready to move into executive session. Thank you, Patricia.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council, you have
Okay,
several
listen,
items
listen.
Let's get through all this.
Executive session, go ahead.
to discuss in executive session 2 or under Order 70A2, negotiations incident to proposed contracts for property purchase at Glen Ferris, position of the city in zoning litigation matter, and then under subsections A2 and 5, discussion of several matters relating to economic development, expansion of services, et cetera. And which involve proposed contracts for City Hall, public parking in the West End, entertainment facility, and a conference center, and under subsection A1, boards and commissions.
Need a motion?
Second.
All right.
Think somebody soon second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
Just a second while we make sure we are offline. That's always, yes, offline.